It was late on a Tuesday evening when my world began to unravel. I was doubled over in the bathroom, a cold sweat on my brow, my gut twisting as if I'd swallowed poison. It was in that moment of physical agony that I heard the muffled laughter coming from the other side of the door. At first, it was just noise, but then the words became clear. They were laughing at my expense. The punchline, I soon realized, was my own blissful ignorance, while my wife, Chloe, was with another man. The most distinct voice belonged to Julian Vance, a slick operator now boasting to his friend, Mark Jennings, about his conquest. Every detail was a fresh stab of betrayal. They thought it was hilarious, me, the ever-trusting husband, completely oblivious. Julian bragged as if he'd won a championship, recounting every sordid detail to Mark. The night he was so proud of? It was during the Westwood Museum heist investigation. I'm Liam Carter, a senior investigator for a high-stakes insurance corporation. Our firm handles the valuables of the ultra-wealthy, legacy fortunes, tech billionaires, celebrities, and renowned art collectors. We're a discreet operation. Our name is only known in circles where a stolen masterpiece is a Tuesday inconvenience. I'm 39, and I've been in this game since I graduated. I'm exceptionally good at what I do. My specialty is high-end theft recovery, priceless art, rare vehicles, elaborate cross-border fraud. When something valuable vanishes, I'm the one they call. The Westwood job had been a quick one, a 2-hour call-out max. I did a preliminary sweep, filed my initial report, and was back at a company party before it was even winding down. That's where I found Chloe, at a table with 3 others. Directly opposite her was Julian. Flanking him were his supervisor, David Chen, and David's wife, Sarah. Everyone seemed relaxed, a picture of professional camaraderie. Chloe greeted me with a warm smile. We danced, I kissed her, and we left the party a bit early. She had no idea I was walking straight back into the ruins of a life she had secretly helped demolish. My wife of 12 years, my world. We have 2 beautiful daughters, Sophie, who is 9, and Maya, who is 7. Chloe is a year my senior and works as the executive assistant to our firm's president, Mr. Harrison. She hadn't been working there when we first met. After she was laid off from her old job, I was the one who encouraged her to apply. I even pulled some strings to get HR to bend their no-family policy for me. She came in with stellar references, and Harrison, needing an assistant, hired her immediately. She adapted to the new environment almost too quickly. Julian and Mark, they were in the same high-end insurance field. Not close friends of mine, just faces I recognized from company events. Julian had always set my teeth on edge, too polished, too smooth. He had a way of looking at my wife that lasted a second too long, a laugh that was always a bit too loud. They both worked under David Chen, a man I'd trusted and worked alongside for years. He was close with Harrison, but I considered him a reliable colleague. Back in that bathroom stall, hunched over and fighting waves of nausea, their conversation drifted in. Colin and Mark had entered, not bothering to check if any stalls were occupied. They spoke freely, as if in a private locker room. And then I heard Chloe's name. Mark's tone was light, amused. "So, you really managed it. I never thought she was the type." Julian's laughter was low and smug. "You weren't there, so let me paint a picture. We danced a few times. She was being a little flirty, but kept up the pretense of being cool. Liam was around, so when I invited her back to my office, she just smiled and said, 'Liam might have an issue with that.'" Mark snorted. "No kidding, so what happened then?" Julian continued, his voice dripping with arrogance, as if recounting a cheap bar story. "I talked her into one last drink at the bar. Liam was off dancing with that secretary, Judy, I think. Chloe was distracted talking to someone, so I switched our glasses. I gave her my double gin. She never even suspected." "You drugged her?" Mark asked, a hint of shock in his voice. "Relax," Julian scoffed. "I just loosened her up. I wasn't trying to roofie her, just lower her inhibitions. Nothing criminal. She didn't flinch when I started getting handsy on the dance floor. She just laughed and leaned in closer.
By that point, she was more than receptive to the idea. But Liam was still at the party, Mark pointed out. Luck was on my side, Julian chuckled. He got a call about a break-in and had to leave for a few hours. Chloe asked him to take her home first, but he told her to stay and have fun, promising he'd be back soon. She hesitated for a moment, but stayed. She ended up at our table with me, David, and his wife. Mark leaned in, eager for more. And then what? I ordered her another double. She drank it down like water. I slow danced again, real close, her head on my shoulder, my hand on her chest. I could feel her just melt against me. She was gone, man. Giggling, grabbing my arms, letting me touch her without a single word of protest. And then, Mark pressed, grinning. She mentioned feeling dizzy, so I offered to walk her outside for some air. She agreed, without a second thought. We went out back, got into my car. She climbed right into the back seat and laid down, as if she was ready for anything. I started kissing her neck, moved my hand up her thigh, and she pulled me in closer. She told me she wanted all of it, so I gave it to her. She was moaning, saying it was so damn good. She even told me I tasted incredible. Ben let out a low whistle. Damn, Chloe? Seriously? I never saw her as the cheating type. Especially not with you, no offense. Are you sure this isn't just talk? Julian's voice turned serious. Dude, this is real. She's already agreed to see me again this Saturday. She told her husband she has a hair appointment, but I've already booked a suite. We're going to spend the whole afternoon together. Round 2, maybe even 3. Mark laughed. Man, I'm envious. She's a knockout. Liam's always been punching above his weight. If you get tired of her, you know who to call. Maybe, Julian said with a smirk. But let's keep this between us. I don't want anything messing this up. My lips are sealed, Mark promised. You earned it. They walked out, and I stayed there, hunched over, the world spinning. The nausea had nothing to do with bad shrimp anymore. It was the raw, sickening truth that I had just been forced to swallow. Was any of it real? I closed my eyes, replaying the entire night in my head. It was almost midnight when I had returned to the party. Chloe was with Julian, David, and Sarah. When I approached, she seemed perfectly fine, not drunk at all. She was just chatting with Sarah about the kids' school play. Julian said a few words to me, nothing memorable, and then left. Chloe said something to him as he walked away, but at the time it seemed insignificant. Now it felt like a dagger. The one thing that had seemed so sweet that night now felt tainted. When we got home, Chloe had wanted me. That wasn't out of the ordinary, but it was nearly 1 a.m, and she's never been one for late nights. She was passionate, wild, almost desperate. At the time, I thought she was just in the mood. Now I saw it for what it was: guilt, a desperate attempt to wash away her betrayal. A full week passed. She acted normal. No strange calls, no suspicious behavior. She never mentioned that I had left the party for a few hours that night. I casually asked her what she did while I was gone. She said, I danced a little with Julian and David, mostly just hung out with Sarah, talking about the kids' school play. That's all, really. Then she added, honestly, I wish I had left with you. I wasn't feeling it. That's when my intuition screamed.
I started watching her more closely. One evening, while she was folding laundry, I said casually, Got any plans this Saturday? Yeah, she replied. I have a hair appointment after lunch. Shouldn't take more than an hour. Why? She asked. I was thinking of playing a round of golf, I said, my eyes fixed on her. Maybe I'll see if Mark Jennings wants to join. She paused. Mark? She asked. Ugh, he and David both give me the creeps. Don't they usually golf together anyway? Yeah, I think David does.
Not sure about Mark or his wife, I replied. Neither do I, she said quickly. Then I dangled the bait. What about Julian Vance? You seemed to get along at the party. Maybe I'll ask him to join. She turned to face me, her eyes narrowing. Why would you want him to come? Her tone was sharp. Honestly, pardon my French, but he's an asshole. I danced with him once, sure, but he gave me weird vibes. He's a sleaze. Was she trying to steer me away from him, or was this a performance for my benefit? Either way, her reaction was off. She rarely spoke about people with such venom. Huh, I said, feigning ignorance. I don't know him well, but he and Mark seem tight. Maybe it's a bad idea. I'll just call Phil and Charlie. They're always up for a game. That sounds much better, she said, relieved. Seriously, stay away from Julian. Don't get involved with him. No problem, I nodded. He's off the list. So, no issues with me golfing? Not at all, she said. I'll be out anyway. Hey, why don't we have dinner at the Cypress Inn that evening? It can be our date night. I'll have my new haircut, you'll be relaxed from golf, and you can show me off. I'll have the girls sleep over at my mom's. Sounds perfect, I smiled, agreeing to meet at home at 5:30 to get ready. But in my mind, the gears were already in motion. If I played my cards right, I would have all the evidence I needed by the end of the day, and I would confront her over a fine meal at one of the best restaurants in the city. I would rip the mask off her deception in the most public way possible. The next morning, I went to the office and headed straight for the control room. I picked up everything I needed to track my wife and her lover. We had several unmarked surveillance vans for fraud cases. I signed one out under a work pretext and parked it in the lower garage ready for Saturday morning. I also acquired 2 miniature audio transmitters, one for her purse, one for her car, and a GPS tracker to hardwire under her dashboard. I would know her every move. The van was equipped with live tracking, accurate to within 30 meters, and even a real-time video feed. The microphones were motion-activated and would record everything without my intervention. I could park a mile away and still be a fly on the wall. The video was trickier. The van had cameras, but filming inside a motel room was impossible. A pinhole camera in her coat was a risky option. For now, the GPS and audio would have to be enough. The rest of the week was a masterclass in observation. I watched Julian and Mark. Nothing out of the ordinary, just work talk, meetings, and lunch breaks. I stayed close to Chloe, acting completely normal. I visited her at her desk more often. If she noticed, she didn't let on. She gave nothing away. That's when I knew I had to push Mark. He was knee-deep in a policy build-out for a major client factory, the Baxter plant. I'd helped him with risk reports on a similar case before, which gave me the perfect excuse to approach him. That Tuesday, I walked over to his desk, right across from Julian's. "Hey, Mark," I said with a nod. "I was thinking about the Baxter project. I think we need another walkthrough. Are you free to go with me?" He looked up startled, as if I'd pulled him from a deep thought. He blinked, then nodded slowly. "Yeah, Liam, I need to get some photos out there anyway. When were you thinking?" "An hour from now?" I asked. "Yeah, works for me," he replied. "Cool.
"I'll swing by and grab you," I said. As I turned to leave, I glanced back over my shoulder just before rounding the corner. And there it was. I caught them, Mark and Julian, exchanging a smug look, like 2 high school kids who just pulled a fast one. That was all the confirmation I needed. I no longer cared if Mark had ever touched Chloe. By laughing at my expense, he had made himself an accomplice. He was part of the joke, part of the betrayal, and he was going to pay for it. Mark slid into the passenger seat of my car, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. I said nothing until we were on the freeway. The small transmitter I had dropped onto the center console was already recording. It was just the 2 of us now, raw, unfiltered. I turned to him, my voice as cold as ice. "So, Mark, have fun at the party last week?" He blinked. "What party? I wasn't there.
I was out of town on a business trip. Missed it. I smirked, keeping my eyes on the road. Really? That's a shame. You missed a hell of a show. Julian screwing my wife. Does that ring a bell? The color drained from Mark's face. He looked like he'd been gut-punched. His hand twitched toward the door handle before he realized we were doing 70 miles per hour. Finally, he dropped his head and mumbled, "How'd you find out?" My voice was flat. "Julian told me." Mark shook his head. "You think he'd actually brag about that? That's messed up." I shrugged. "That's what makes me believe it's true. The sick bastard was smiling when he said it." Mark swallowed hard. "But how did you know I knew?" "You weren't at the party, right?" My voice was like steel. "Yet somehow you knew exactly when it happened. That's a curious thing, Mark." He looked down, guilt written all over his face. "Look, man, I heard it secondhand, okay? Julian's got a big mouth. He said he got her drunk, took her to his car, said it wasn't the first time." I snapped my head toward him. "What else did he say? Is he planning a sequel?" Mark hesitated, then confessed. "Saturday, while she's at her hair appointment. He said he's getting a room. That's all I know, Liam, I swear." "Oh, I'm sure you were just about to tell me all this, right?" The sarcasm in my voice was thick. "Look, man, I like you. I like Chloe. I didn't know it was real until now. I feel terrible, seriously." I leaned back, letting the silence stretch for a moment. Then I repeated Julian's own vile words. What did he say again? He was going to screw her after his conquest was done with her? Mark's eyes widened in horror. I reached over and turned off the transmitter. That was the only piece of audio I needed. Now it was time for the real conversation. "Here's how this is going to work," I said, my voice low and sharp. "You will do exactly as I say when I say it. No questions. You mess this up and you can't even imagine the hell I will bring down on you." Mark nodded quickly, any courage he had evaporating. I leaned in closer. "And not a word of this gets back to Julian. You so much as breathe in his direction, and I will make your life a living nightmare. I will get you fired, blacklisted, and humiliated. Do you understand?" Yeah, man, I won't say a thing." "You better not. I have ways of knowing Mark. Don't test me." "I'll stay away from him, whatever you want." "No," I said with a slight grin. "You'll act exactly as you always do. Let him talk. Let him think he's the one in charge. Nod your head, laugh at his stupid jokes. I have what I need. You just play the role of the oblivious sidekick, and you'll get to keep your job." We didn't speak for the rest of the 2-hour site visit. We worked in silence, side by side. He was focused on his task, and I was focused on mine. I had what I needed. Mark didn't know it yet, but his fate was already sealed. He was going down with the rest of them, just not today. That week dragged on like a slow-motion car crash. I watched Chloe, listening, waiting. But there was nothing. No strange calls, no odd behavior, business as usual. Then Wednesday came. Our daughters had a dance class that night, and they wouldn't be home until after 9:30. I was on the couch, half watching a show I wasn't paying attention to, when Chloe came in. Without a word, she eased onto my lap, wrapped her arms around my neck, and pressed her cheek against mine. "We have almost 2 hours before I need to pick up the girls," she whispered. "Want to go upstairs?" I was still torn apart inside, angry, distrustful. But I am a man, and I am human. And she knew exactly what she was doing.
Against my better judgment, my body responded before my mind could intervene. I slid my hands around her waist, pulling her tight. I kissed her, gently at first, and she kissed me back with a deepening passion. "Take me upstairs, Liam. I want you, right now." I didn't hesitate. I followed her up the stairs, my eyes on her hips as she swayed before me. By the time we were in the bedroom, clothes were flying. The experience was raw, deep, as if we were holding on to each other for dear life. Afterward, we didn't speak, just lay tangled together, catching our breath. For a moment, it felt real, like the quiet love that builds over years, like we hadn't been shattered. I wanted to believe it meant something, that what I had heard was just a cruel misunderstanding, but that flicker of hope didn't last. Deep down, the truth was already there. "That was really nice," she said softly, her head on my chest. "We should do this more often. It feels like we've been distant lately. Let's not let that happen again." "Yeah," I said, stroking her arm. "I'll work on that." She sat up. "How much time do we have? Think we can squeeze in a shower before I go?" I glanced at the clock. "You've got some time. Or we could wait until Saturday for our date night." She smiled. "I can always have the girls sleep over at my mom's. Saturday sounds perfect. You have your golf, I have my hair appointment, and then dinner. After that, I'm all yours. Any way you want me, all night long. You better start stretching." I laughed softly. "Can't argue with that." "I didn't think so," she winked, climbing out of bed. "All right, babe, we'll be in touch." She dressed and left to pick up the kids. I stayed in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of it all. How could she touch me, kiss me, want me like that, and still have done what I knew she did with Julian Vance? She was either completely innocent or the most convincing liar I had ever met. Something was wrong, and by Saturday, I would have my answer. After she left, I checked my surveillance gear. The transmitters were working perfectly. My plan was to plant them in her car on Friday night. The final piece of the puzzle was the location, the exact room Julian had booked. Once I had that, I would be ready. And Mark Jennings? He was going to give it to me, whether he wanted to or not. The next morning, I called Mark and told him to meet me at the upstairs cafeteria. He didn't question it. When he arrived, I was already there, sipping coffee. He slid into the booth across from me. I got straight to the point. "Mark, I need a favor." He nodded cautiously. "I need you to find out where Julian is taking Chloe on Saturday. The name of the motel, the street, the room number, if you can get it." Mark shifted uncomfortably. "All you have to do," I continued, "is catch him alone. Tell him you think he's full of it. Tell him if he gives you the name, you might start to believe his story." I smiled faintly as he sat there silently weighing his options. Finally, he asked, "How will I get the information to you?" "Don't worry about that," I said, leaning back. "I've got it covered." As he stood to leave, I got up and gave him a friendly pat on the back, like a couple of colleagues just shooting the breeze.
What he didn't feel was the transmitter I'd just placed under the collar of his jacket. It was glued tight, practically invisible. He never felt a thing. I returned to my office and activated the receiver. The signal came through instantly. Mark was back at his desk, chatting. Then I heard him whisper to Julian, "Meet me in the copy room in 10? "Sure," Julian replied. 10 minutes later, I heard footsteps. "What's up?" It was Julian. Mark said, "I was just with Liam yesterday. He didn't say anything about problems at home. Said everything was great. So I'm thinking maybe you're full of it." Julian scoffed. "Why would I lie, dude? I'm telling you, me and Chloe, it's real." "Then prove it," Mark challenged. "Where are you taking her Saturday?" "You serious?" Julian asked, then dropped the bombshell. "The Starlight Inn on Elmwood. I've already booked the room. Check-in's at 2, she's arriving at 2:15. Call them, ask for my name, I don't care." "That's enough," Mark said. sounding both impressed and uneasy. "I've got to admit, I envy you. Chloe is something else. But you know she's married to Liam, right? You're messing with a good guy's life." Julian laughed. "That's not my problem. If she's willing to be with me, I'm not the one wrecking the marriage." That was everything I needed. I turned off the receiver, but let the recording continue. I had enough. I had been hoping Julian would backtrack, but instead he had confirmed everything, the time, the location, all with a chilling confidence. Now I could sync the surveillance van's GPS with the motel's address. The system would do the rest. I just had to press play and walk away. Part of me wanted to be nowhere near that place on Saturday. I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to feel my heart shatter as my wife walked into a cheap motel room with that monster. That I knew I couldn't walk away from this. Not until it was finished. Step 1, I called the Starlight Inn. A man with a tired voice answered. I asked about Julian Vance's reservation. He confirmed it. Julian wasn't bluffing. Then a new thought struck me. What if I could get a picture of them walking into that room? A picture is worth 1,000 words, especially when your life is on the line. I drove to the motel to scope it out. It was exactly as I'd pictured, faded, run down, and just sleazy enough to fit the narrative. The clerk behind the desk looked like he was one bad day away from a felony charge. Perfect. "Hey there," I said, approaching with a calm, confident smile. "I'm with a major insurance firm, doing some investigative work. Need a little help." I flashed a fake badge. It wasn't real, but it was convincing enough for a guy who probably didn't finish high school. I also handed him a folded paper that looked like a warrant. It wasn't, but the crisp $100 bill tucked inside did the trick. The clerk's eyes darted from the cash to my face. "What kind of help?" he asked. "I need to verify a reservation for Julian Vance. Also, if you could, please move him to a first-floor room that faces Elmwood Avenue. It would make our surveillance much easier." He scratched his greasy neck. That might be difficult. I slid another 50 across the counter. He looked at the bill and gave me a crooked grin. "Let me see what I can do." A few taps on his keyboard, and he gave me the new room number. It was perfect. A direct line of sight from where I planned to park the van. "I'll be leaving a surveillance vehicle on site. It will be here tomorrow night with the equipment activated on Saturday morning." He shrugged as if it were just another Tuesday. "No problem." "I appreciate it," I said, sliding one last 50 his way. "This is for your silence." He nodded, tucking the cash into his pocket like a seasoned pro. On the drive back, I finalized my plan. I would aim the van's front camera directly at the room's window and let it roll. I wouldn't have to sit there and watch my own life implode. This way, I would get the evidence without witnessing the act in real time. Friday at work was torture. I couldn't focus, couldn't sit still. I went up to Mr. Harrison's office, using the gallery break-in as an excuse. I needed to see Chloe. As I walked down the hall, she saw me and her face lit up with that familiar, beautiful smile. She waved me over. "I've really enjoyed this week," she said. "You've been around more. Not that I'm complaining, but is everything okay? Is there something you're not telling me?" "Nothing like that," I said, my voice soft. "I just wanted to see more of you. Is Harrison in?" "He is," she said. "Want me to buzz you in?" "Yeah, I need a quick word about the gallery case." I stepped into his office. He greeted me with his usual relaxed charm. He was young for a company president, but incredibly sharp. He had built this division from the ground up. His wife, Eleanor, was gorgeous, blonde, and sculpted like a statue. She and Chloe were the same age and moved in the same social circles. After some small talk, I got to the point. "What's your take on Julian Vance?" I asked. Harrison looked at me carefully. "Why do you ask? Is there something I should know?" "I need to know if he's trouble," I said. "This is personal." You want the truth? He asked. Always. I've had my suspicions about him, he admitted, but nothing concrete. You think something's going on? I might, I said, and Mark is tied up in it. I should know more by the end of the weekend. If things play out as I expect, I'll call you on Sunday. If not, I'll wait until Monday. Harrison nodded. Let's wait, but I appreciate the heads up. Keep this between us. Of course. He leaned back. You know I trust your judgment, Liam. I always have. That VP position I mentioned, it's still yours if you want it. I haven't told Chloe yet. You need to, he said. That promotion changes everything. If you don't bring it up soon, I will. I'll give you an answer next week, I promise. You think it's going to happen? It's building, I said. We'll see. Well, he said, I'm holding you to that. I stood, shook his hand, and left. I passed Chloe on my way out. She gave me another one of those sweet, easy smiles. I walked down to Mark's desk, and loud enough for Julian to hear, I said, Hey, Mark, I looked over that Baxter report. You nailed it, man. Great work. I gave him a thumbs up. It was our signal. I had heard everything. Mark's eyes widened slightly, but he just nodded once. As I patted him on the back, I slipped the transmitter from his jacket collar. Just like that, he never noticed. I finished my day on autopilot, waiting for Chloe so we could drive home together. I told her I needed to drop off some equipment and might be a little late. A quick stop at the van, then a cab to my car. She kissed me goodbye. As she left, I saw Julian near the exit, watching her walk away. Then his eyes met mine. He blinked first and turned away. Later that night, I drove the van to the motel and parked it directly in front of room 207, the room I had arranged with the clerk. I secured the camera, checked the lens angle, and set it to standby. On my way out, I stopped at the office one last time. The van will be here through tomorrow. No problem, he said. I slid a final 20 across the counter. Appreciate it. He nodded and took it with a handshake. Then I went home knowing the trap was perfectly set. Friday night caught me completely off guard. Chloe ordered pizza for the girls and then casually mentioned she had arranged for them to spend the night at her mom's house. I raised an eyebrow. What's the occasion? She smiled. Because I loved what happened on Wednesday. I want more of that. Don't you? I grinned back. I'm not complaining. That night was just like Wednesday, but with a new intensity.
She was more aggressive, more confident, doing things she had never done before. As I was lost in the moment, a strange thought crept into my mind. Where did she learn all of this? Afterward, as we lay there, I asked, Okay, not that I'm mad, but where did you learn those moves? She laughed, reached into her nightstand, and pulled out a book. Here, she said, flipping to a dog-eared page. It's from Rekindling the Flame After 40. Eleanor gave it to me. Apparently, there's a whole chapter on keeping things spicy. Damn. She had followed it to the letter. I couldn't lie. It was incredible. I did every single thing she asked, and it took us hours, but I didn't care. I even joked that I might need Viagra next time. As we lay wrapped in each other, I finally asked what had been tormenting me. Chloe, I'm loving this, and I want to give you everything you need, but what is this really about? Why now? If I didn't know better, I'd think you were making up for something. She turned her head, her eyes soft. I'm sorry, Liam. Eleanor told me something last week. I can't share the details, but it made me think about us, about the girls, about how lucky I am. I just wanted to show you how much you mean to me. I stared at her for a few seconds. She looked so genuinely happy. It hurt. But the voice in my head whispered, If that's true, why is she cheating? Still, I had to ask. Are you sure I make you happy? I mean, really, you're satisfied? Or is this all just to fill a void? She reached up and touched my cheek. I love what we have. I have always been satisfied with you. This isn't about something missing. It's about not letting us become stale. I want to feel wanted, desired. I want you to keep wanting me. You never have to doubt that, I told her. I love you. You're everything to me. Nothing could ever change that. She leaned in and whispered, "Good. Because I am not letting anyone take you away from me. You are mine, now and always." We held each other and fell asleep. And that's how we woke up. Tangled, tired, but happy. I pulled her gently. "Come shower with me." She groaned. "It's so warm in bed." I grinned. "It'll be warmer with me." She rolled her eyes but followed. Once the water was on, we lathered each other up. Slowly, playfully, thoroughly. And yes, things got heated again. After our second round, we rinsed off, got dressed, and she started her morning routine. I, however, had work to do. Before sunrise, I drove to the Starlight Inn to check my setup. The van was locked and perfectly positioned. The cameras were aimed directly at room 207. The timers were set. Audio would start at 1 p.m. and run for 5 hours. The video was programmed to record for 7 hours straight, saving everything to a DVD. By the time they walked into their love nest, they would be the stars of their very own home movie, and I would have a front row seat to the truth. I drove home, grabbed my golf clubs, and kissed Chloe goodbye. "This is going to be a rough one," I muttered in my breath. I ended up golfing with a couple of guys from my club. They were decent players, but my game was garbage. My mind was elsewhere, and my score reflected it. I bought a round of beers after the 9th hole, feeling like the ultimate loser. Just after 5 p.m., I swung by the motel to check the van. Everything was untouched. No sign of Julian's car, nothing suspicious. I assumed they had already come and gone. I stepped away from the van and called the house. Chloe answered. "Hey, babe." "I'm on my way," and hung up. I was tempted to watch the footage right then, but we had dinner plans. A nice restaurant, a reservation already made. I decided to wait. Part of me wanted one more night of pretending. Because, despite everything, I loved her. And even if she had betrayed me, that wasn't a feeling I could just erase. I still loved her, more than I could handle. On the drive home, my throat tightened. Why would she do this to me?
I had no answers, but I knew one thing. If that footage confirmed my fears, it was over. I would file for divorce. I loved her, but betrayal was something I could never live with. Then the questions I dreaded asking myself came flooding back. What about the girls? She's a good mother. Even if she was a terrible wife, she deserved to raise them. I would pay support, I would stay in their lives, but I wouldn't poison them with the truth. Maybe there was a reason. Maybe it was just one mistake. People mess up, but they don't destroy their families over it. Those were the thoughts swirling in my head as I pulled into the driveway. I wasn't sure I would make it through the night, but I knew I couldn't act without proof, and soon I would have it. When I got inside, Chloe was already showered and mostly dressed. She said she'd finish getting ready after I was done. I threw on a clean shirt and slacks, and we were out the door right on time. She looked stunning, the kind of beautiful that breaks hearts in a crowded room. She always had that power. Men always turned to look at her. She never paid them any mind, but I always noticed. And tonight, that power felt like it was erasing me. I wasn't sure what was real anymore. She was sharp, funny, and warm, the perfect date.
We talked like a normal couple, enjoying a rare, quiet moment. She sipped her wine, laughed at my jokes, and leaned in close when I spoke. Her hand brushed against my arm more than once. She was flirting with me, her husband of 12 years, the mother of our children, like it was our first date. And all I could think was that she could have spent the day in bed with Julian Vance. Yet here she was, smiling, giggling, playing footsie under the table, feeding me chocolate mousse as if we were kids again. And I played along because I had to see this through to the end. I needed to know for sure. Tomorrow, I would watch the tape. Tonight, I would pretend. Back home, while Chloe was in the restroom, I signaled the waiter for the check. A few minutes later, we were walking to the car, hand in hand as if everything was perfect. Once we were on the main road, she leaned her head on my shoulder, reached over, and gently pulled my hand from the steering wheel, placing it on her thigh. "Drive like this," she whispered with a smirk. I smiled, slid my hand higher, and pulled her closer. For a moment, it felt like we were young again, reckless, foolish, and completely lost in each other. She sighed softly and settled against me. The drive home was slow and quiet, but it felt comfortable, like the peaceful love that settles over time. Once we were inside, she went about her nightly routine, checking the laundry, fluffing pillows, making sure the girls' things were in order. Then she stopped and looked at me with a mischievous grin. "So, don't you think it's time we finished what we started this morning? I'm pretty sure you still owe me something. That was just a teaser." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, I remember," I said. "Lead the way." We went upstairs. She stood by the bed and slowly removed her blouse, then her bra. She was wearing nothing but a single strand of pearls. She reached up to unclasp them. "Don't," I said, stepping closer. "Leave them on. You look unreal, like a dream. I could look at you all night." She smiled softly. "No one else will ever see me like this. I am completely yours. I want you to do whatever you want with me tonight. I want this to feel like the start of something new." I hesitated, searching her face. "Are you sure?" I asked. "You never have to pretend with me. I would never hurt you. You should know that by now. I trust you, and I am giving you all of me." She stepped forward and cupped my face in her hands. "I love you with everything I have." And in that moment, I believed her. I really did. Whatever tomorrow held, whatever the tape revealed, I couldn't let it ruin tonight. Tonight, I wanted her. I needed her.
I loved her as if it were the first time. We explored new territory, things we had never even spoken of. She revealed moves I never knew she had, laughing as she quoted page numbers from the book Eleanor had given her. It was more than just physical. It was wild, intimate, and raw. It felt like we were rediscovering each other after years spent in the dark. I didn't want it to end. We finally fell asleep, tangled together, and didn't wake until late Sunday morning. She rolled over, groaning as the light peeped through the curtains. "I don't want to move," she muttered. I leaned in. "One more round?" I asked with a grin. She grinned back. "You're insatiable." I learned from the best. And just like that, we made love again, slow and deep, as if it truly meant something. Eventually, we got up. She had to go pick up the girls from her mom's. I told her I had some work to attend to and would be back later. She said she might stay at her mom's for a while. Perfect. That gave me the time I needed. I drove to the motel, retrieved the DVDs, pulled the GPS data, and shut down the equipment. Everything had worked flawlessly. No issues. I returned to the man, called a cab, picked up my car, and went home. First, the GPS logs. Her car had been parked on Elmwood Avenue that afternoon, directly in front of the motel. That's when the crack in my chest widened. I held the printout, praying it was a mistake. Maybe she drove past. Maybe she just dropped something off. But I knew. I almost couldn't bring myself to watch the video, but I had to. I needed to know. I turned on the TV, put the DVD in, and pressed play. The camera had a perfect, crystal-clear view of the room. I fast-forwarded until a car pulled in. Julian Vance got out, walked to the door, knocked, and went inside. I rewound, waited. A second car appeared. She stepped out. Chloe. She walked to the room, looked around once, and knocked. Julian opened the door, a smug grin on his face. She stepped inside. Just before the door closed, she turned slightly. I saw her face. My stomach lurched. I paused the video, rewound it, played it again. There was no mistake. Jesus Christ, I muttered. It's her! I sat there, shaking, my heart pounding in my chest as I stared at the frozen image of my wife walking into a motel room with another man. I needed to make a call. I found her old address book, flipped through it, and found the address I was looking for. It matched what I had already suspected. I smiled grimly. I had everything I needed. I called Mr. Harrison's personal line. He answered on the second ring. "Harrison," I said, "I need to talk, in person, now." He sounded confused. "Liam, is everything okay?" "It's not something I can discuss over the phone. Not at home, just us, no one else." He hesitated, then agreed. We met at the Corner Bistro, a neutral location near the office. An hour later, I walked in with a portable DVD player and headphones. Chloe had called to say she and the girls were staying for dinner at her mom's, which gave me all the time I needed. Harrison was already in a booth. I slid in across from him. "Before I show you anything," I said, "you need to understand the situation." He nodded warily. I told him everything: the conversation I'd recorded, the GPS data, the video. He kept shaking his head, repeating, "No way. Chloe would never do something like that." I said quietly, "Watch the tape. Just watch." I handed him the player and headphones. He put them on and pressed play. I looked away to give him some privacy, but I saw the moment his expression changed. His jaw tightened, his face flushed with a mixture of fury and disbelief. I didn't need to hear a word. The truth had hit him like a train track. When the video ended, he just sat there, motionless, staring at the small screen as if it might explode. I waited. Eventually, he took off the headphones and rubbed his face, as if trying to wipe away the images. His jaw was clenched tight. He exhaled slowly. When he had calmed down enough to listen, I made my move. "I only want one thing," I said, my voice steady. "They both need to be fired. Mark and Julian. They violated the morals clause in their contracts. I want them out of this company by Monday afternoon." Harrison looked at me, stunned for a second. Then a slow, cold smile spread across his face. It wasn't a happy smile. It was controlled and deeply satisfying. "Consider it done," he said. "First thing Monday. I'll walk them out myself. They're finished. Dead to me. I might even take this further, but you don't need to worry about that." "Fair enough," I nodded. I handed him a black zipper pouch containing all the files, the footage, the GPS data, the audio transcripts, everything. I only kept one tape for myself. I had my own plans.
My wife was in for the surprise of her life. Harrison and I talked for another hour, sorting through the fallout, planning the next steps, deciding who needed to know what and when. When it was time to leave, we stood and shook hands. "You're a good man, Liam. I mean that. The way you handled this with such restraint and class, I don't know many people who would have stayed so cool. This could have gone sideways fast. I have a great deal of respect for you." I nodded. "Thanks. That means a lot." But the first time in days, I actually felt okay. Not happy, but clear. The fog had finally lifted. I went home to my wife and my kids. They had no idea their world was about to be turned upside down. That night, everything felt surprisingly normal. Chloe was cheerful and relaxed. She asked if anything significant had happened that day. "Let's just say," I told her, "you'll find out at work tomorrow." She laughed, didn't press the issue, and we went to bed early, both exhausted from the weekend. She curled up next to me and asked me to hold her. I did. And for that one night, it felt okay. We fell asleep just as we had the night before, as if everything was still whole. Monday morning hit like a wrecking ball. At 9:30, my phone rang. It was Chloe. She said, "Liam, what the hell is going on?" I played dumb. "What do you mean?" "Harrison just called me into his office," she whispered. "He told me to get Mark Jennings and Julian Vance in there immediately. They're both in there right now, and I can hear shouting. A lot of it." "Wow," I said, my voice even. "That's strange. Keep me posted?" She said she would, and hung up. 20 minutes later, she called back. "Harrison just told me to call security," she said, her voice tight and breathless. I could hear her cover the phone to speak to someone nearby. Then she came back on the line. "They're being escorted to their desks by security right now, both of them. This is insane." She ended the call abruptly, promising another update soon. An hour passed. Then she called again. "They're gone. Fired." Just like that. I remained silent. "And guess what?" she added. "Harrison had me type up their termination letters. The reason? Violation of the morals clause." I could hear the disbelief in her voice, the frantic energy. "This is the craziest thing I have ever seen happen here. We have to get lunch. I need to talk to someone about this." "Yeah, let's do that." And I meant it. The next chapter was about to begin. Over lunch, she was a whirlwind of words. Harrison went ballistic, a complete meltdown. Security walked them out, told them never to come back. He even yelled at me, screamed in my face. Then he apologized, said it wasn't about me, that he was just processing. She paused, giving me a sharp, questioning look. "Liam, what the hell is going on? Harrison told me to talk to you. He said, ask Liam, he knows everything. He's the reason I finally see the truth. So I'm asking, what did you do?" I leaned back calmly, too calmly for her comfort. "Before I say anything, there's something you need to hear first."
I pulled out my phone and handed her the recording. Her eyes narrowed, but she took it. Headphones in, she pressed play. I watched as the voices of Mark and Julian filled her ears. The motel, the plan, her name, her fabricated hair appointment. Her face contorted, first tight, then pale, then utterly stunned. Her lips parted as if she couldn't breathe. She ripped the headphones off as if they were on fire. "Nonsense! He's lying! I never I never went to any motel with him. That's garbage. You actually believe this crap? Did you show this to Harrison? Nope, I said, my voice like ice. Neither of us believed Julian's story. But you need to shut up and listen. I overheard them talking over a week ago. Julian told Mark he got you drunk at the party, took you to his car, said you two hooked up. He went into graphic detail, like some sick fantasy, and Mark ate it up, even said he wanted a turn next time. Her jaw twitched, but I didn't stop. I didn't know if Julian was lying or if you were just a phenomenal actress. So I had Mark press him again, and Julian doubled down. He gave the name of the motel, the street, the time, the exact day you told me you had a hair appointment. She flinched and opened her mouth to speak, but I cut her off. Don't. Just listen. I got a surveillance van from work. I tracked your car. I had cameras on the room. The clerk gave me the room number. I watched it all on Sunday. I saw who came. Then I gave it all to Harrison. The video, the audio, the GPS logs, and I told him to fire them both. And he did. Her mouth was dry, her eyes glossy. She blinked, as if her brain was struggling to process it all. Liam, I wasn't there. I swear I just got my hair done. Yes, on Elmwood, but I didn't meet anyone. I didn't even speak to Julian. Do you really not trust me at all? I gave her a long, hard look. I do, I said, and I'll tell you why. I watched the footage. A woman did meet Julian, just like he said, at the motel in room 207. But it wasn't you. Her lips barely moved. Then, who? It was Elena, Harrison's wife. She gasped. I started putting the pieces together after I talked to David Chen. Julian told Mark he took you to his car, so I asked David if you seemed drunk that night. He laughed and said you and his wife were drinking soda. You were completely sober, glued to her side. He even mentioned that you asked her to stick close because Julian was giving you the creeps. I shrugged. And when I asked if Julian ever dragged you outside, David just laughed again, didn't even answer. Chloe's eyes narrowed into slits. So let me get this straight. You thought I was sneaking around behind your back. You set up spy gear, tracked my car, recorded people, and now you're sitting there all smug, like I'm supposed to thank you for it. You're not supposed to thank me, sweetheart. You're supposed to learn something. She laughed, a bitter, sharp sound. You really didn't trust me. Not after Wednesday, not after Friday, not after Saturday. All those times I was with you, you were still scheming like some paranoid maniac. I trusted you enough to hope I was wrong, but I wasn't going to let Julian run his game. You think I enjoyed this? No. But I sure as hell wasn't going to sit back while some lowlife dragged your name through the mud and had my so-called friends lining up for a turn. I stared her down. And yes, I wish it hadn't been Eleanor. I really do. But I would do it all over again to protect our family. Her voice dropped cold and quiet. You're just as manipulative as they are. I smirked. The difference is, I'm honest about it. We talked a little more before leaving lunch. Chloe seemed to accept my explanation, that I had to know the truth, that my actions weren't born of malice, but a desperate need to protect what we had. She nodded and said she understood. I didn't press her.
I had my doubts, and I felt a pang of guilt for the methods I'd used, but I didn't regret it. The truth hurts, but not knowing hurts more. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, things between us felt okay. Like we were finally in a better place, and I wouldn't let anything threaten that again. By the afternoon, the chaos at the office had subsided. Around 3 p.m., Chloe called.
Harrison wants to see me later today, she said. I'm not sure why. I don't know either. I lied. She didn't question it. I think she believed me. I didn't hear from her again until that night. We had dinner as usual. The girls were a whirlwind of activity, arguing, laughing, yelling, chasing the dog. Normal family chaos. After they finally went to bed, we were left in the quiet. That's when Chloe brought it up. Harrison talked to me today, she said. He told me to think about how lucky I am to have a man like you. I looked at her, saying nothing. He talked about trust and respect, about what it means to truly love someone and how quickly it can all vanish if you're not careful. She paused. Then he told me about Eleanor. What about her? I asked. He told me she did something, Chloe said carefully. He didn't give details, just said he wasn't sure he could move past it. And then he asked for my advice. I raised my eyebrows. What did you tell him? She said I couldn't make that decision for him. I just asked if he still loved her and if forgiveness was possible. I said if the answer was yes, he should give her a chance to explain. But if he knew in his gut that he couldn't get past it, then he shouldn't drag it out. He should just walk away. Don't let it fester. I nodded slowly. That sounds like solid advice. She said he seemed to take it to heart, so maybe I helped. I'm sure you did. He didn't say anything about me, did he? Chloe hesitated. Not really, although there was something else. She looked up at me, a curious light in her eyes. Harrison offered me a new position, I said. Vice President of Investigations, for the whole company. Her eyes went wide. I'd be overseeing every investigator in every office worldwide, and we'd have the option to relocate. California, Florida, wherever we have a major office. I'd still report to him, but that's it. I laid it all out. The job comes with stock options, a raise, better benefits, everything. Chloe let out a squeal and jumped into my lap, laughing like a child. She hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. Oh my God, Liam, she exclaimed, beaming. When did this happen? Was it because of what you did today? Is this some kind of bonus? I chuckled. Now who's jumping to conclusions? He offered it to me 6 months ago. I just wasn't ready to make that kind of decision, but after this past week, it put things into perspective. She pulled back to look me in the eyes. Liam, listen to me, she said firmly. You will never lose me. Not like that. I am not going anywhere. No one else. Ever. That will never happen. Got it? I hear you. No, say it back. I need you to believe it. I met her gaze. Okay, I believe you. Good. Because I'm yours, and that's never gonna change.